So we're here today to talk a little bit about our Z5 Plus rifle scope line, and there's no better place. We're in the indoor range, 150 yards range, here at the Preserve Sporting Club in Rhode Island, one of the top shooting destinations in the country. And we're kind of neatly tucked away in this corner of the range, so you might hear some shooting, but it's on the other side of the building through several doors, so we're perfectly safe. But here at Swarovski Optik, we have a motto, and that's to constantly improve what is good. And that's exactly the approach we took with our Z5 Plus rifle scope line. And we talked to a lot of different shooters throughout the country and the world and tried to come up with a system that solves all their needs, right? There's all different kinds of things we're doing out there today. But let's start with the actual sizing of all these scopes. This particular one that we have on this rifle is a 5 to 25 by 56. It's also available in a 3.5 to 18 by 50 and a 2 to 10 by 42. Within those magnifications, you have a lot of different reticle options. And we know here at Swarovski Optik that reticle choices can be somewhat personal, can be somewhat, the type of shooting you're doing. So we tried to come up with the options that make sense. Also, within these scopes, they're available in illuminated and non-illuminated versions. So, in the shooting market in today's world, illuminated scopes are becoming more and more popular, but we also understand some people just don't want to have them. So you have the option of either getting them with or without. And then even as we walk through some of the new ballistic turret, we also know that's not just for everybody. Some people just don't want to get into the longer distances and just want to use it for short distance hunting. So all of these scopes are available. You still have a turret to sight in the gun, but it's not a ballistic turret where you can dial in custom for longer distances. And then even the ballistic turret system itself, we've got a couple of different options, and that's what we're going to walk through today. So after you've decided which scope is best to suit your needs, I want to talk a little bit about the biggest advantage of these Z5 Pluses, and that starts right here in this 30mm tube. It's got 80 MOA internal range of adjustment, and that is absolutely huge for Swarovski Optik. And what does that mean to the average shooter? You've got guns now that are shooting out very accurately, 800, 900, 1,000 yards, even beyond. That means with this scope, it gives you that ability to make the adjustments needed and have a huge amount of adjustment in there so you can dial it in for 800, 900 in these longer distances, so you're super accurate. And all of these scopes, the 2 to 10, the 3.5 to 18, and the 5 to 25 have a full 80 MOA internal range of adjustment. So the next big feature on the Z5 Plus is the ballistic turret itself. Sometimes you'll see it labeled as a BT in our literature or our website, but it's a completely redesigned system, and it comes in two different ways. One, as you see here, is our colored ring system. So with this, it gives you the ability to sight the gun in at whatever distance you want. Typically, people do it at 100 yards, and then you can go on our ballistic calculator or our hunting app, put in your specific information, sight in distance, elevation, ammunition data, all the things that would affect the bullet's trajectory, and it allows you to put your specific distances. So for example, you could sight this gun in at 100 and put 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, the distances for your specific use. The other option that we have is our MOA turret. So if you're used to just dialing in MOA and that's something you want to do, you have the option that these colored rings would come off. That MOA ring would go on here and you'd see it in MOA. And then the third option we have is our custom PBR, and it's our personalized ballistic ring. And what it allows you to do is go on the website, go on the hunting app, and put in your specific information, and allows you to kind of select in 25 or 50-yard increments how you want the numbers set up, and you would see your specific numbers for your specific caliber. And that's an option for, as all of these are available in those three different options for the ballistic turret. So as we start the process to properly sight in the ballistic turret, there's one topic I want to address to make sure it's perfectly clear. Like we discussed earlier, this 30mm tube has a maximum internal range of adjustment of 80 MOA, which is absolutely huge. When it comes to the turret itself, it's designed with a total of 40 MOA. but when it comes out of the box, it's centered, right? So now you've got 40 total. If it's centered, that means you've got 20 MOA up and 20 MOA down. Now, most of the time that's going to work, but obviously a lot of different rifle setups, calibers, there's a lot of different things that can come into play. So sometimes you may have to adjust that 40 within the 80 to perfectly suit your rifle and allow you to sight in, because the ultimate goal of this is to get your gun sighted in at the distance you want, whether it's 100, 150, whatever you choose, but then we'll set the zero stop, and that's when it will give you the total 40 MOA to shoot out to those longer distances. So as we start the process to properly sight in your rifle, there's a couple of things we need to do to the turret itself. First, you'll see our little locking mechanism here. You want to move that to the locked position so the turret does not turn. And this is a great little feature, not only for the sight-in process, but also once you get the gun completely dialed in, when you're out in the field, if you're jumping in and out of a vehicle, if it's in a backpack, if it's in a horse scabbard, you're able to engage that lock so the turret won't move and it'll be right where you want it to be. But as far as the sighting process, we definitely want to lock that turret so it doesn't move. Then we'll just twist off the cap at the top. Something you can do with your fingers. You don't need any specific tool. We'll take the 4 colored rings off, and if you had an MOA ring on here, it would be the exact same process. That whole ring would come off. And then you'll see our little tool that comes with this, and this is to loosen and tighten the set screws for the zero stop and a couple of other things that we're going to walk through here in a little bit. But definitely take this little tool out and make sure not to drop it. And now you're ready to complete the sight-in process. You can get to the range, shoot at your desired distance, and hopefully sight that gun right in. So now at this point, we're ready to go sight in the rifle. Once we get on the range and you get all situated, you're able to make both the windage and the elevation adjustment. So if you want to take your windage cap off, which is pretty normal and standard, you're able to make any corrections for windage that you want, and then also your elevation up and down. So in a perfect world, you'll go to the range, you'll make your adjustments. Now this gun will be completely sighted in at your desired sight-in distance. So as you're sighting in your rifle, one thing I want you to take notice of, as you're making the adjustments on the turret itself, you have a little black fin that's kind of down inside the center of the scope. As you're making the adjustments on the turret and it's adjusting the reticle when you're sighting in, you'll see that that actually moves in the same direction that you're turning the turret. And that is perfectly normal. That's a good thing, but it just shows you that your reticle is moving. And that's going to be a little bit different as we set the zero stop. So I just want to make you aware that when you see movement in whatever direction you're turning, that means it is adjusting the reticle. So now as your rifle sits, you're sighted in at 100 yards or 150 yards, what we want to do is set the zero stop. And why we do that is to set the bottom of zero stop so you can have the full 40 MOA of that ballistic turret the way it's designed and to use it properly. So we need to set the zero. In order to do that, your gun's sighted in, you're exactly shooting where you want it. You want to engage the lock, right? So that turret cannot move. It's at your zeroing point. We're all good. Then you want to take your little tool. And there's a couple of little set screws here. There's 2 set screws that you'll turn counterclockwise, and it's just a little turn, kind of lefty loosen. You'll feel them loosen up. What you did there was you actually disengaged the turret. So now we can turn that turret without actually making any adjustments to your bullet impact. So we want to disengage the lock, and you'll start to turn this turret clockwise. But before we go too far, I want to make mention, now that we've disengaged the turret, you'll see that that little black fin that we were talking about, as we move this turret, that doesn't move. So that's great. That means you just disengage the turret, you're setting the zero stop clockwise, so you move it all the way till it can't go anymore, and it sets your zero. You'll see it matches up with the larger triangle that's there. That means your zero stop is in the right place. So what we want to do now is re-engage that turret. So we'll turn the locking mechanism again. Now that turret can't move at all. It's at your zero stop. It's shooting at 100 yards perfectly where you set it. So now we re-engage the turret, but to re-engage it, we go back to the same set screws. Righty-tighty, right? You'll feel them tighten up. They don't need to be over-tightened. It's just a good little tight, nothing crazy. So now they're tight, and you'll see if you disengage that turret and move it just a little bit, you'll see that that black fin starts to move again. That means if you move it at all, that reticle will be adjusting. But again, now your zero stop is set, so you can turn it all the way down and it can't go below the zero. So there's a perfect example of sighting in a rifle, getting to the zero stop when everything works out perfectly. But because there are a lot of different features, the type of rifle, the type of rings and bases, all this goes into the shooting system, there might come a time when you're trying to sight in and you'll feel the turret stop, but you still need to come down, say, 2 more inches or whatever it may be in your case. There's nothing wrong with the scope. As we discussed before, what we can do is kind of maneuver that 40 MOA of the ballistic turret within the range of the total range of adjustment of 80 in the scope to make it work for you. So what we need to do at that point is disengage the turret. In other words, you'll get to a point, you're taking a few shots and you're still, an inch or 2 above where you want to be, and you'll feel the turret stop. And that's where you want to make this adjustment, because you want to get a little more space in that turret to come down that last 1.5 to 2 inches, whatever it may be. So what I want to do is disengage the turret. So I'll lock the turret in place. I'll disengage the turret with the set screws. And again, what that does is disengage the turret from the reticle. So now you can spin the turret without making adjustments to where that reticle is sitting. So now that reticle is still sitting 1.5 or 2 inches above where you want it to be. But what you can do is you can turn this counterclockwise and say you need 2 MOA. That's about 8 clicks. That's a good rule of thumb. I typically would go a little higher, so maybe we'll go to 12 clicks. And again, notice the fin in the center of the scope. It's not turning, so you're not making adjustments to the reticle. You're just turning the turret. It's disengaged. Once you get up those 12 clicks, we're going to lock it back in, and we're going to re-engage the turret. So now you've re-engaged the turret. Any movement you make now is going to make more of an adjustment. You're going to unlock it. So now you can make the adjustment for that last 1.5, 2 inches, whatever it may be, whatever MOA you needed. Now you'll be sighted in. So you have a sighted in rifle here. You've gone through that process. And then what we would need to do is set the zero stop like we talked about earlier. So now we're at a point, we've got our rifle sighted in at 100 yards, which is what we wanted. We've got our zero stop set. We disengaged and then re-engaged the turret and went through that whole process. So the next step is to add back in either your colored rings, the MOA ring, or even our custom PBR. So how you would do that, we're going to start with the colored rings. The best thing to do is either go on our Swarovski Ballistic calculator on the website or our hunting app. You'd put in all your information that we had talked about, and then that's going to give you distances that you would reset your colors. So for this particular example, we've got it sighted in at 100 yards. So to have a 200-yard value on the next color, it tells us we need to come up 6 clicks. So we're going to come up 6 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And add our green color ring at the 6 click mark. For 300 yards, it then says 8 clicks from here. So we come up another 8. And then we're going to take our yellow ring and match it up with the little white dot that shows you you're at 300 yards. For 400 yards, it says 10 clicks. So now we're going to come up 10 clicks, put on our red ring to match up with the little white dot. Now the last one is our 500-yard mark, and it says another 11 clicks. So now 11 clicks from the previous marker will be right there at 500 yards to match up with the little white dot. And then from there, we're going to take our Swarovski tool that we used and put it back into the turret. so we know where it is at all times. Put on the cover. And it's very easy. You go back to 0, you just turn the turret, and you'll feel it. It won't go past the 0 stop. And you've got settings for 100 yards at the 0, 200, 300, 400, and 500. So that covers our colored dots. If you had the MOA ring, what you would do, a very similar process. You take the cover back off, take all your colored rings off. You'll take the MOA ring, you'll see there's a 0 on that. You would match up the 0 on the MOA ring. Put the cap on. Now you've got your MOA ring with the numbers right on here, and a really nice feature on our Ballistic calculator is you can go in there, put in your information, it will tell you how many clicks to utilize this ring a little bit more. It just depends on what you're used to. And kind of the same process with our custom PBR. This is something you go on our website, talk to customer service, you'd give them all your information. This particular one was set up for a 300 Win Mag, and it's basically the same concept. You'd turn the turret down to your 0 stop, so you couldn't turn it anymore. Look for your 0 on this ring, which is also 100 yards. We'd pop this right on. You'll see that it matches up. 100 yards is on your little white dot, which is your 0. You put that on. And this particular turret will allow you to go all the way out to just over 1,200 yards. Custom to your ammunition. So as you can see, the Swarovski Optik Z5 Plus is really one of those scopes that just doesn't come along too often. First and foremost, it's a Swarovski optic, so when it's quality of the glass, the coatings on the lenses, the durability of the product, and most of all, how much we stand behind the brand, this product is bar none. But also the 30mm main tube with 80 MOA, just a huge internal range of adjustment. The newly designed Ballistic turret, which has 40 MOA, which offers so much versatility, whether it's the custom turret or an MOA turret or just plain old colors, it gives you a lot of options. And then even down to the different sizes, the different magnification, the different reticles, the illuminated, the non-illuminated, the turret, the non-turret. This Z5 Plus from Swarovski Optik just gives you a huge amount of options for every circumstance out in the field.